Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Jason Sutton, your host, aka The Guru, where it is my job to dissect, analyze, break down, and ultimately share with all of you great people out there the habits, routines, and life lessons of high performers in the teaching business, as well as all other fields in between. On today's episode, I have my good friend Aaron Kauffman on the show. You can find him on Instagram at Aaron Kauffman _ASPT. Aaron is a physical therapist and also a personal trainer to many elite athletes, including my son Nicholas, that he's been working with for several months, and we'll get into their relationship a little bit during the podcast. But just a little bit of background on Aaron. Aaron received his doctorate of physical therapy from Duke University and his Bachelor of Exercise Science from University of North Carolina at Charlotte. He was a very high-level runner when he was in high school and ultimately took that to his college career at UNCC, where he clocked many times in the top 10 in the country in the 800, and also was an indoor state champion. On this episode, we talk about a variety of topics as usual, but mainly we talk about the keys to his functional movement paradigm, the structure that he trains his athletes to get them to the highest level, how his TPI has helped improve his training with his athletes and especially his golfers, obviously, and then how his running background and competitive background has helped his coaching. So you're really going to enjoy this conversation as I get very transparent with some of the things that we're dealing with young athletes, like my son Nicholas, and their relationship, and really talk about the double growth spurt, as I'm going to call it. And really going to be very insightful for a lot of you coaches out there that might have some juniors or even college players that are just starting to work out properly, and how that can affect their golf swing in a positive and also a negative way, and how you can diagnose that. So let's go ahead and jump into my conversation with Aaron Kauffman. All right, Aaron Kauffman, welcome to the show, man. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So we're going to switch gears from the teaching realm and go into the fitness and the PT space. So tell the listeners a little bit about what you're doing now. You're with Architect Sports. So give us a little more background on sort of what you do, and then a little bit about your company before we sort of take them back.
Yeah, so I'm a physical therapist. I've been a physical therapist for about 4 years now. I started with Architect Sports and Physical Therapy about a year or so ago. A lot of what we do is we do performance therapy and also just performance training. We see a lot of injuries from the sports world. We see a lot of injuries from just all aspects of life, and really just try to maximize everyone's goals and try to improve really upon what their goals are. I mean, we have, like I said, a wide variety of patients from NBA and NFL guys all the way through, our mom and pops, and it's really a cool gig that we get to work with all these people.
Yeah, now you're sort of diving into the golfing realm too, right? And to give the listeners a little context of how we met, go ahead and tell that story, and then how you're working with, our both favorite client, which is my son.
Yeah. So I think it all kind of stems back, from really when I was little. I grew up being an athlete, but I grew up every summer going down to Myrtle Beach and spending my weeks golfing. My parents had to pull me away from the beach. They made me promise one day I would go to the beach, and that afternoon I ended up walking 6, 7, 8, and 9 about 3 or 4 times.
Right.
So about once a week I grew up loving golf, and throughout my career and also educational career, knew I wanted to go into physical therapy.
Right.
And from there, one of my rotations in physical therapy school was actually at it was in Pebble Beach, California, and that's really where I got my first kind of first real live look at really the PT world and golf. I got to work with the senior tour and on the Nature Valley First Tee Open, and got to work with the golfers out there and the amateurs and also some of the best juniors in the country.
Right.
And that's really where I started to see that there's a huge niche and in terms of human movement and the golf game and maximizing performance for the both of them. So after PT school, I took a course that is becoming well known. It's TPI,
Right.
for Titleist Performance Institute, and really kind of just started making my way around and kind of just talking to golf professionals, talking to teaching professionals like yourself, and kind of just hanging out, kind of being a fly on the wall and
Right.
learning.
And I think you connected with my staffs, Seth and Robbie,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and that's sort of how we met, right?
Yeah, so connected really through Seth.
Right.
And Seth and I and Robbie actually played around in golf one
Right.
day. And we kind of just all kind of started talking and bouncing ideas off of one another. And Seth approached me one day to jump in on a talk. We're at Carmel Country Club, and really that's kind of how you and I met.
We did college night.
College night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And talked about how to build a golf program.
Right.
And it was a great night, but really that's kind of how you and I started working together.
That's right.
And, one of our favorite people that we work with is kind of coming through the high school realms and really starting to grow and seeing kind of how the body is very important in what he is doing in his golf game too.
Yeah. That's my son, Nicholas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what we can go in so many directions with this thing. This is gonna be a great podcast.
Yeah.
So let's take him back, like to your childhood and sort of, because I know you're an exceptional athlete as well, or now that you're 30, maybe you know,
Not
which
so
is
much.
young to me, right? But I know you've had a really, which is kind of cool because it's kind of like as teachers, we pride ourselves on, having sort of that experience of playing at a high level. And I never played the tour, and a lot of guys say, well, you need to play at a high level to sort of teach it.
Mm-hmm.
But you've lived it in a couple of different things with running
Mm-hmm.
and track. So take us all the way back and then sort of take us up through your sports career and then your, I guess, the way you got to where you are now.
Yeah. So sports career actually started when I was 3 years old, and really started with the game of soccer. Soccer is my first love. World Cup's going on right now.
Yeah, it is.
So very still involved in that. But really from about 3 through still today, I played a game last night. Have played soccer. And when I was always that kid that we'd run warm-up laps, and I'd always be way ahead of everyone else, and always just enjoyed running. It kind of came to like a crossroads with coming into high school sports. Played soccer every weekend, and the 7th grade ended up deciding to run cross country, and there was no team at the middle school I was at. It was just me. And so every day I'd run with the high school team and ran in one meet. And then 8th grade, went back and played soccer again. It was, the decision, wanted to go back and play with the friends. And then we get to high school, and that's where kind of the decision was. I had my heart set on playing soccer that summer, and that I spent $500 that summer to go to Duke soccer camp. Like, I was heart set on it.
Right.
And for some reason, the day of tryouts, I decided to run cross country. I'm very competitive.
So how did that decision happen? I mean, what did you have a discussion with your parents? I mean, that's kind of interesting that you'd say that. I mean, something had to happen.
There's a good story behind it. I could probably share it for another time, but the gist behind the story is the weekend before I hung out with my cross country friends, and I had a really fun time that night, and I had kind of just going into high school wanting to spend my time with those guys, and it's kind of
peer pressure.
yeah, pretty much peer pressure.
It's okay.
And it turned out to be a great decision because my cross country career and ultimately track career too led me to a lot of good places. By the end of my senior year, I ended up having a top 10 time in the country for the 800. Took 6th at indoor nationals and led me to a Division I track and cross country scholarship for UNC Charlotte, which is kind of how
Nice.
ended
Local.
up here in Charlotte.
Yeah. What was the time? I'm not sure what's good.
Time in high school was a 151.2. Time in college was not much better, but it's okay. I ran a 150 in college in a 407 mile.
Still really fast for most people.
I could not come anywhere close to that today. But so yeah, and that was, being at kind of top level, running 80 miles a week and workouts, lifting, being in the weight room, core training, which was a huge part of everything. But I'll actually boil it back down to soccer. I think soccer had a huge part in me being able to be fast at track. I would still, in high school, I'd run 4 miles or 6 miles and then go play soccer for 2 hours.
Just unbelievable training for fast twitch muscles, right?
Exactly. And then also kind of slow twitch muscles too from the endurance standpoint.
Gotcha.
And for the 800, that's what what was...
Who can last, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was awesome kind of have both worlds of it. But I said, ended up UNC Charlotte for 4 years, studied kinesiology there. The whole track and cross country. Ended up making it to the quarterfinals of nationals in my 5th year in the 800. And then decided, I always knew I wanted to go to PT school. That was my career path. I knew running wasn't going to be my career.
So you kind of figured that out in college?
Figured that out in high school,
Really?
actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I took my sophomore year of high school, took an athletic training class, and I loved it. Loved the body, loved everything I learned, and either knew I wanted to be an athletic trainer or a physical therapist, and the hours are a little bit better with physical therapy.
Right.
So it's kind of the path I went down. All through college was trying to set myself up for that path, and after undergrad, went to Duke for physical therapy school. So
Not bad.
yeah.
So after that, then how did you get to where you are now with Architect? Was that right after college, or what happened then?
So Duke's a 3-year program.
Right.
2 years in the class, 1 year basically in clinicals. That's where I spent my time in Pebble and in Portland. After that, didn't know where I was going to end up. Ended up back in Charlotte for a company that I did my undergrad internship with. And there was a company called Elite Physical Therapy. Worked for them for about 2.5 years, and that's where I initially did my TPI certification. And always knew I kind of wanted to work for the company I work for now. Kind of a weird story. Not even weird, but the guy that I did my undergrad internship with worked for Elite initially. He moved on to this new company. When I came back into town, I really wanted to work with him because of the sports performance aspect that they were really working with the high school, the college, the professional athletes, and kind of just bided my time until the time was right to make the move over with Architect. So
Nice. So, being a top athlete, how do you feel that this helped you with your job now? Is it give you more relevance, would you say, with your clients, or is there anything that you sort of draw upon being in that competitive environment that helps you with your job now?
Yeah, I think one experience is everything. I mean, I think we all learn from our experiences, but we learn from like the experience that we're in. And so kind of being at that top training, especially with like our athletes and it really improving on their performance after injury, because that's devastating. I mean, you talk of someone that's a sophomore in high school looking for their to play college soccer, and to have an injury that could devastate that is huge. It's like everything to them.
Right.
And so kind of just understanding what it takes to get back to what they need to, and understand the process of it all too is huge. So I think kind of those experiences with running, with soccer, really helped me to be able to push my patients to really maximize their performance.
Yeah, I think that, and I've watched you work a lot with Nick and with other athletes, and I think that's what you do really well, is sort of blend the information and the knowledge with that sort of motivation as sort of a coaching.
Yeah.
I would call you a coach. I mean, you're not just giving them the exercises and the stretches and the forms, but you're also, hey, you need to pick it up, or you need to, let's give me this, and I know you're better than that. I hear you kind of, yeah, you're subtle, but you're really, really effective, and I think that's really awesome. So, getting into the golf space now with TPI, how is it different working with golfers than with any other athletes, or is there a lot of commonalities, would you say?
Yeah, I think you'll see with Brooks Koepka, just won the U.S. Open, and a lot of the talk right now is golfers are athletes too, right? Brooks is a big guy, but he's an athlete too. And so I think you see a huge similarity between a lot of the sports, but there's also, golf's unique. It's, the only sport that you're hitting a stationary object, right? Every other sport is going to be reactionary. But you also look at commonalities. If you look at pitchers, right? You look at quarterbacks. If you think of some of these positions, these guys also make really good golfers too. You look at John Smoltz. You look at Drew Brees. I think Tom Brady's also really good.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, these guys are good.
Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Like some of the NBA players are
exactly.
amazing.
So being athletic is not just specific to your sport. Golf is a rotational sport. Being a quarterback and throwing the football, your whole body rotates. Pitchers, it's all rotational. And so I think, taking a 3D realm and looking at really at all planes of your body is going to be huge. And if you don't do that, you're going to be missing something. But all of those people you see, like you said, Steph, John Smoltz, who am I thinking? The Dallas quarterback.
Troy Aikman.
Yeah. Tony Romo.
Tony Romo, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good player.
Yeah, all of them make good players too. So I think you see that. Jordan Spieth played baseball growing up. Like I think the body mechanics, I think the motor mechanics and the coordination, they all translate to not only different sports, but can translate to the golf game really well too.
Right. Yeah, and I love the way you work, because you don't necessarily have to know the golf swing in and out, even though you're starting to learn it more. You've come and watched me teach. You've been shadowing, which I think is awesome. But when we converse about Nick or about a couple of my other players you work with, you get it, because all I got to tell you is like, this is what I need. And you're like, okay, here's how to train it. So give me, because I know you've got a really good framework, because I saw it at the college night. Give me some of your, I guess, keys to functional movement, and then how you train it.
Yeah. So functional really is, what is necessary to provide that task, right? So if we look at the golf game, we're going to look at a lot of rotational aspects, but I think if we break that down a little bit, and we talked about this at golf night, and how to kind of build a golf program, right, for training purposes. is we were kind of looking at those 5 pillars, right? We were looking at mobility of certain joints. And this is kind of how we'll break stuff down, looking at what a person's body can and can't do. And then what will happen is you and I will converse of what we want, and really kind of from the body aspect try to make that work. So we look at mobility, right? Mobility of each joint. Joints are supposed to move in a certain direction and have a certain range of motion. If they don't, it can affect a multitude. It's almost like a domino effect down the line of everything. Then we look at stability of the joints or strength of the joints. Am I able to resist, like in my core, am I able to resist against outside forces? So if I am in a push-up position and I lift one arm up, does my entire body rotate to help myself stabilize, or can I keep my back flat? From there, we look at motor control. Like, can that movement go through in a smooth motion, or can I achieve the task appropriately that I want to be doing? And we'll look at like a golf posture, like a pelvic tilt, or moving your pelvis back and forth. We seen with Nick, that first day, how shaky that was that first day. So that's the third pillar we kind of look at. From there, we want to look at strength. Once you kind of have those aspects, we can start building into your strength a little bit. And then we start moving into power. And that's really where a lot of people want to start, right? And they don't have those foundational building blocks to progress through that. So they'll move to power, and they'll be using different body parts that are not efficient for them.
So you think most people that make mistakes maybe get those out of order? So they go power first instead of mobility? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about a process earlier,
exactly.
Right? And they don't really go through their process. They kind of skip over some stuff because they either want a quick fix, or it's a trendy thing to do. They see it on social media. They see a box jump or throwing a ball or throwing like a weighted med ball. And then, they'll see Brooks do that on Instagram. So what are they going to go do? Going to go throw the ball, right? Because that's what Brooks does.
Right.
Not necessarily that's what they need. So I'd say that's a huge kind of limitation in our industry, and educating people on that too.
Yeah, that's actually one of my questions is what are some of the misconceptions that are out there, or some of the mistakes people make when they're trying to train for golf? Because this is a golf podcast. But I mean, it could go with any direction. I think just athleticism, right? Because you train all different types of sports. I mean, what are some of the mistakes people make?
Yeah, I think doing things before they're ready to. Okay, not having an appropriate, I would say, at least from my realm, an assessment.
TPI assessment for golf, right?
Exactly, yeah. TPI assessment, so you and I can communicate then of what we need. I mean, we've done that with a lot of, players that we both worked with together.
Right.
Also from, at least a little bit more diving in, but an assessment if they have pain. What's causing that pain? And then also you don't want to be working through pain, right? That's where dysfunction, we talk about functional movements, that's where dysfunction starts to come into play. And that's typically either what will lead to injury or, prevent them from either recovering or maximizing their performance. But yeah, those are some of the big things. Getting those pillars out of order that we talked about,
right?
And not having a team, not knowing what to do. I think that's huge as well.
Having a plan.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's such great advice. I mean, it's just like that's why we're such a good team together, because you have to have all of those elements in place. I think to be successful, especially with our pros and our elite juniors that we're working with, and like Nicholas. And that was the thing that really drew me to you, was your PT background, because Nick was having some back pain at 15.
Right.
right? I mean, that's not normal.
Right.
And it was showing up in some of the swing changes that I wanted to make but couldn't make them because he wasn't strong enough.
Yeah.
And that's why I really like your approach, because you can work on the pain and also make him stronger, which is sort of a nice blend to get him in a place where we could start making the swing changes that we've made in the last, really the last 6 months, which has been huge.
Mm-hmm. And not having pain with that either.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the first and foremost, I want him to be healthy.
Yeah.
I don't want him to be playing and, having back pain or knee pain or whatever. So that's such a cool thing. So, when just advice for, I think, players out there, if you can get a trainer that has a PT background, it's such a great blend of knowledge to where they can keep you healthy and also make you stronger. All right, so let's dive into some personal development stuff here a little bit. So you mentioned one individual that was a mentor of yours. So how would you categorize your mentors? Like, give me 2 or 3 mentors that you've had, whether it's career or life, and what you've learned from them. So I think that's important.
Yeah, so the one I mentioned is now a coworker of mine. I'll name drop him. I mean, his name
for
is
sure. Give him a shout out.
Joe Tedesco. He's at our Indian Trail location. He's been a mentor from the standpoint of personal development. I did an undergrad internship with him, and one of the big reasons I chose Duke was because he went to Duke. And I was just watching him, and I said, man, if I could be half the therapist that this guy could be, I could be doing okay.
Yeah. So he was a good role model for you.
Good role model. Yeah. And just kind of understanding and seeing kind of how he interacts with people. I think communication is huge. I think that's also why we make a good team, is because we communicate a lot with each other. Yeah. So Joe has been really a good role model. He's always really been there when if ever I need a question, whether it's PT related, life related, Joe's really always been there. I think that's been just huge for me. Growing up, I definitely had a couple role models as well. One was a senior on the team when I was a freshman on the cross country team. First off, he was a role model because he was good.
Right.
So you always are going after the good people.
Right.
Not only from like wanting them to be a role model, but you want to be better than them. And I think he pushed me to be better. He pushed me to break his records. He pushed me to go on that run with him when I didn't want to, or to go do that workout.
You remember his name?
His name was Chris Robeson.
Yeah, there you go.
Got married a week after I did.
Okay.
So, and we still talk. We're still pretty good friends. He ran for Lock Haven in Pennsylvania, which is where we're from, Pennsylvania. And even through college we still stay in touch and talk about, communication, and just motivated me. I mean, he always wanted me to be better than him, and I always wanted to be better than him.
That's a good mentor.
Yeah. And then I would say just some professors through college and through high school. I think it really comes back to the people that push you, really are the people that you kind of look up to and want to be better than and be better for. Almost.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, let's just kind of switch back to golf a little bit. Yeah. What do young coaches need to know about the body to help their players? Maybe things to look at, and what advice would you give to a young coach about functional movement?
Yeah, that's tough.
I know it's a tough question, but just maybe some bullet points of, let's say a young teacher came to you and said, I really want to be a well-rounded teacher and coach. What advice would you have?
Biggest advice I would say is finding out what you can about the body and what it should and shouldn't do, and also throughout the stage of life. Golf is a game from 3-year-olds, if you're Tiger Woods, to 90-year-olds. I mean, it's a lifespan game. So think understanding one, who you're working with is going to be children or child or the development through high school is one, making it fun, and two, knowing that they're not going to have much coordination. They're going to be very mobile, and so they may not be able to control what they're doing. To kind of, I think, understanding kind of, if you understand that when they're little and then making it fun for them, as you get older, what do? 80% of America is going to sit at a desk job. So that's going to stiffen you up. And understanding that flexibility in the golf game is huge, especially from that 20 to 60, 70, 80 range. Kind of understand what needs to be flexible and what needs to be mobile. I think if you can get a little bit understanding of that as a golf professional, and then make connections with also people who do understand that, because we all have limitations. I'm trying to learn a lot about the golf game, especially from you. And so I think being open-minded to learning about the body as a golf professional, I think is huge.
You think TPI is a good place to start? I mean, I think it's probably, it's not bad, right?
It has a great reputation.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think the reputation holds weight too. I mean, you talk to anybody, I can't tell you how many people I've had to say, "Oh, you're TPI certified. Like, I need to come talk with you or work with you." I'm like,
yeah.
Well, let's work together with people first before we just dive into this right here.
Right.
But TPI is a great place to start. I mean, I would suggest, getting a TPI screen from a golf professional, fitness professional, a medical or a physical therapist. Because, I mean, I think they're people who are going to understand the body, going to understand, hopefully they're going to understand the golf swing a little bit.
The biomechanics. Sure.
And how both of them fit together. Because
that's really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think they can do that to make it where it's consistent for the person. I think consistency is a key.
Very good. All right, so describe a failure or an apparent failure that has set you up for later success, and do you have a favorite failure?
Favorite failure? Oh, man. A lot of my failures come from my running career. I would say my senior year of cross country, I should have been like top 10. I went through a bad breakup in high school. And my states as senior year was a huge failure. I mean, I'm talking like kids that I could jog around would beat me at states. And it really put me down. I took some time off and kind of had to really just soul search a little bit and figure out like what I was doing, why I was doing it. I knew I wanted to run in college. I was being recruited by these coaches, and it's like, holy crap, I just ran the worst race of my life, and these college coaches are looking at it. And that also added more pressure into the entire situation. And really, I took some time off, and that was the biggest thing, I think, kind of just taking that little time off, taking a little step away. Because it almost makes you hungry when you come back.
Right.
And that was when I came back in indoor season, I think I mentioned earlier, that ended up running some good 800 times and completely switched focus from a 2-mile, 3,200 race, because I wanted to run that at Penn Relays that year. I wanted to run the 3K. So I ran an 800, qualify for states. I was like, okay, well, maybe there's a little silver lining in this. Tried to run like a 3K, terrible. Like in indoor season, I mean, I almost walked off the track. Ran states in the 800, ended up winning states in the 800 for, and then that's what qualified me for nationals, and took 6th at nationals in indoor, and kind of set me back on a path of more track related with that.
So take me back to when that when you were having that slump,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously there's some outside influences
Yep.
happening there. Like, did you have somebody that helped? Did you talk to somebody, or was it just an inner dialogue that you had with yourself, and just sort of when you stepped away, was it just like a inner piece of like, okay, let's reevaluate what I'm doing, or did somebody have some guidance there?
That guy Chris, I talked to a lot about that, and it was tough too because his college coach was also recruiting me.
Right.
So
It's like, what's going on with Aaron,
exactly,
right? Yeah.
exactly. So I talked to Chris a little bit, and see if he had a lot of slumps, how he dealt with them, and it's always just a grind. You know, he gave me a lot of confidence, letting me know that I was a really good runner. Kind of take me back to some of my, I don't say glory moments, but earlier in the season, ran a 15:55K, and he's like, you're a good runner. And then from there, it's just getting back to the grind and training hard. But talking to Chris, talking to a couple of coaches in the area as well, because I had my high school coach, but I always tried to train with the best in the area, and so I would go run at other schools with all the other really good runners in the area, and I talked to their coaches about stuff, and a lot of it was just they kept reassuring me, like, Aaron, you're a good runner. Like, it was a lot of just reassurance. That's kind of what I needed at that time.
Yeah, a little confidence boost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because we all go through slumps.
sure.
And
It's probably a good time to talk about maybe Nicholas's trials and tribulations in the last couple of months. I mean, I'm not afraid to share it if you want to talk about it.
Yeah.
We just discussed it. Nick had been working with you for about 6 months now.
Yeah.
And phenomenal work. I mean, I think he's really gotten stronger. And I know, what was the rotational force test?
Right.
Share that with the listeners a little bit, because I know that was one of the things that we sort of measured, because our goal was to get more distance,
Mm-hmm.
and also to just tighten up the swing a little bit, and then I'll sort of take them through the rest of the conversation.
Yeah. So we used a test for rotational power, and we started off that first day testing that. I know I said I don't like to train power off the beginning, but I like to know what it is.
Right.
So we have a Kaiser machine, which is that we have a couple Kaiser machines, but it's basically hydraulics that's going to measure peak power. So we tested a full rotational power to the left side and rotational power to the right side based off his weight. At 15% of his weight and 20% of his weight, his numbers were at about 750 Newton meters. Don't worry about the Newton meters part of it. Basically, I gave Nick a goal to get over 1,000. Right. A lot of the other players I worked with, I like to get that over 1,000 to show that golf's a rotational sport.
Mm-hmm.
Like to know what your rotational power is. So Nick and I have been working for probably about 2 to 3 months, and we barely lifted a weight. We're kind of going through our progression of those 5 pillars that we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. And Nick's now probably about 1,100 to 1,200. Actually, I think he's at 1,200
right.
for his Newton meter. So
nearly doubled.
Yeah, really improved. Yeah. Now, can you control that?
Right, and that's where the story comes into play. Is I think it was probably a month ago. I mean, we just finished states. He was still, he was hitting it fine. Wasn't hitting it awesome, but he finished 11th in the state. Was doing okay. We're kind of gearing up for the summer, and then all of a sudden, just absolutely loses control of the club face. I mean, literally starts hitting foul balls, like can't find it off the tee, which has always been his strength.
Right.
Has a really bad tournament. I mean, like 15 shots higher than normally he would shoot. It was just really crazy. So I'm just like, this has just got to be an anomaly. Well, then he has another one. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, okay, something's going on here, right? So start digging into the golf swing, and the swing hadn't changed that much, on the video. Me and you were talked about it, like, what's going on here? So he had gotten so much stronger, especially in his lower body. And he's a bit of a jumper, right? Which a lot of kids are, a lot of vertical force.
Right.
And you've been trying to incorporate the rotational force with it. So it was interesting. We were just at AJGA last week, and we've been working on some swing changes, really literally changing his ball flight from a draw, because he was hitting big blocks, to more of a cut pattern. And I was talking to my friend Tim Cook, that's a TPI guy, very knowledgeable about biomechanics.
Yeah.
And I said, have you ever heard of a kid that at this elite level just absolutely just losing it that quickly? And he goes, yeah, it's almost like a growth spurt, only it's with the body getting stronger, right? It wasn't like he was growing more. It was more he was just getting stronger. And showed him the video, and he said, yeah, we got to get him open in the torso more, feeling like he's swinging left, which is exactly what we started working on. And it literally started clicking, I guess, about a week ago.
Yeah.
And he's picked up 6 or 7 miles per hour club head speed, right, since you guys have been working together, which is fantastic. So just kind of getting in, and now he's starting to stabilize a little bit. And I think, we're on to something really, really good. But it was very baffling from a coach's standpoint.
Yeah.
Much less the dad that's going, what's going on here, right? But the coaching standpoint, I was sort of, what am I doing with this golf swing? Did I make a mistake? And then now I'm like, no, we didn't make a mistake. It was just him sort of restabilizing his body, right? So it's really good for you coaches out there, especially with kids. It's almost like a growth spurt, but just with power, would you say?
Yeah.
And you said you've seen that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've seen it with some of our other players too, where, so we'll go back to the beginning with Nick.
Yeah.
And what Nick had grown 5 inches in
Actually, you're like 9 inches in 1 year.
9 inches in 1 year, right? And at that point, you're like a Bambi. Like you don't know what to do, except what kind of got you good. And I remember that first TPI screen that we ran Nick through. And his balance was, he couldn't even hold 5 seconds on one leg with his eyes open. And we actually just ran him through like another TPI screen, and eyes closed, can go 25, 30 seconds without even flinching. So you talk about a big growth spurt, and he really started learning his body. And in my world, we talk a lot about movement patterns. I remember probably about 2 months ago, we were having Nick do some kettlebell swings, actually, because we had gotten to the point where we were lifting a little bit with him. And his form was flawless. And the first day we talked about him, maybe just showed him that, like we talked about a Bambi, he didn't know what he was doing, had no clue. And so he's starting to really figure out his body a lot, which is great from a body standpoint, but this is also great for why you and I work together. The rotational, because he had so much vertical going on. So we know from former podcasts for the teachers out there that, jumping is great, but you have to be able to jump and rotate and in the right kinematic sequence per se, to make it functional, and also to control the club face. And that's really where he was stuck in the middle of trying to figure that out. And I didn't know. This is something really new for me, and that's why I'm not afraid to share it, because I think it's going to help coaches out there to, if you do start to see something little that just gets out of whack, it's really good to work with a fitness professional like yourself that can sort of give you some reasoning and some and some comfort to, like, okay, yeah, the swing changes, this has to happen, but it's his body really adjusting to the new power. Right. It's a whole new power source that, he probably tried to have at some point, and now that he has it, it's you talk about kinematic sequence, it's almost like a whip factor. Now something kicks in, well, that's going to change something else down the line, right? Which is probably, again, you and I can go back and forth, and I ask you about, what's going to happen in the club face when stuff like that happens. But he kicked in a whole other power source, and it made a change down the line for him, which is probably why the club face was, I guess we couldn't really control it as much.
Yeah, it was either wide open or he had to flip it.
Yeah.
So it was just very, very difficult to control, which has always been his strength.
Right. And a lot of it dials down back to that new power source.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. It's cool how you figure things out with all of it too. But
and I think he's coming out the other side of it
exactly
bigger and better and stronger, and he's going to be. I mean, he's already an amazing player, but it's going to be even better, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely. All right, so a couple more just rapid fire questions here to finish up with. So this is one that I always enjoy asking: is when you feel overwhelmed or unfocused. Now you're newly married, so maybe a little early for this one. What do you do, or what do you tell yourself? What's your stress relief?
So when I am unfocused, I come back to sports. Not gonna lie, I love watching sports. I love playing sports. It kind of soothes my mind. It really doesn't matter. Other than summer baseball, give me any other sport, and I can do playoff baseball. But anything sports related, watching, playing, that's kind of like my go-to. If I'm in a funk, if I need a stress reliever, it's what I go to.
Okay. I like it. What is the best purchase under $100 that you've made in the last year?
Well, wasn't a ring because that was a lot more than $100.
I would hope so.
Best purchase I've made in the last year under $100. God, I don't even know if I made a purchase under $100 in the last year. I had a wedding to pay for.
You can't buy running shoes under $100 anymore.
Not anymore.
I know that would have been my answer a few years ago, but now it's like.
Yeah, I honestly don't even know if I have an answer for you.
Okay, we can come back to that.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a good one. So what book or books have you gifted or recommended the most? Or what books have like made the biggest effect on your career or your life? Yeah.
I'd go back to some of the running days with them. I mean, to me, all of them are kind of so motivational. There's a lot of good Steve Prefontaine books out there.
Nice.
I mean, he's known as, the mecca really of running.
Sure.
Alan Webb has a really good book about the 4-minute mile. I mean, I believe he still has the fastest high school mile run at 3:53. And it's just a really cool story for him, and kind of how he's going up against these pros running, actually ran at the Prefontaine Classic, but 3:53 mile as a high schooler. But a lot of the Prefontaine books they're very motivational, because that guy, I mean, was really the epitome of American distance running. I mean, he was it.
I know you've run some marathons.
I have, yep.
Yeah, your best marathon time made me sick, because I'm a 4-hour guy at best.
That was.
What was your best?
Best was a 2:47.
That's just ridiculous.
It was also about 7 years ago too.
I don't care. That's still amazing. I'm so pissed about that, actually. That's awesome. I wish I could run that fast. All right, so a couple more. This is good. So, what is an unusual habit or absurd thing that you love? Probably should ask your new wife this.
Yeah. Yeah. Unusual habit. This is going to be pretty embarrassing.
No, it's like this is what this is for, man.
Yeah. So when I get bored, I eat raw pasta. It's like a snack for me. I started that when I was a kid.
Carbo load, probably.
Carbo load,
yeah.
exactly.
For runners.
I'm Italian, and I love pasta. And so when I was young, I couldn't wait for it to be cooked, so I would just start munching on raw pasta.
That's great. Oh my gosh. All right, so this is a great one to end on. Everybody knows this question. If you could get a message to millions or billions of people on a metaphorical billboard, what would it say and why? Could be a quote, could be a saying, could be your life mantra.
Yeah, I go back to quotes. I used to be a huge motivational quote person, and I mean,
give us some of your favorite.
Some of my favorite. So, biggest one that comes to mind. Some people might think I might do a Prefontaine quote, but only those that dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. And I used to go into races, reading that, because if you're afraid to put yourself out there, you're never going to succeed, right? If you're afraid to actually fail, you've already lost. So I thought I always came back to that one, and that was one of my go-to ones. So
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That would fit nicely on a billboard too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully it makes millions.
Very good. Well, you've been so kind with your time.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming through the Guru podcast.
Yeah, I love it.
And really, yeah, this has been good. So tell the listeners out there how they can say hello to you and say thank you. Give us. I know you're not big on social media, but you're any website or.
Yeah, you and Nick are definitely improving my social media.
We're trying to get you more on Instagram.
I need a new phone first, though. So Instagram, Aaron Kauffman _ASPT. You'll see Nick on there a lot, actually.
Yeah.
All his golf training. You can go to architectsports.com. The nice thing about what I do is you do not need a physician's referral if you do not have Medicare to come see me. We work, like we talked about, on dysfunction. This is about everybody that has some type of dysfunction. So if you ever have any pain, please call us, request me, talk to me. Happy to answer any questions and just provide some helpful advice for anybody. But Instagram on Aaron Kauffman ASPT and architectsports.com.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Great stuff.
Thank you.
Hello, all you golf nerds out there. Guru back again. One last couple of things before you get out of your car or get off the treadmill. Big thank you to Aaron Kauffman for coming on the show. We've been trying to do this for quite a while. This guy is so busy because he's so good at what he does, and really appreciate the work that he's doing with my players. So he wanted me to reach out and give everybody the email address to reach him. It's aaron@architectsports.com, and I'll hook that up in the show notes. So if you have trouble with the spelling, just check out the show notes. Also, for those of you that want to get your questions answered for Golf Guru Fridays, or Guru Fridays as I say, #Guru Friday, email the show at golfgurushow@gmail.com, and I will make up a fake name, or you can make up a fake name yourself. But anonymity will be exclusive to all you guys out there. So please email the show. I want to really keep these Guru Fridays going. So they've been very, very popular, and it's fun to kind of geek it up a little bit and talk a little bit more about the teaching stuff, as well as the long interview style / personal development episodes that we've done so far. Hope you're enjoying the content. Thank you so much for all the downloads and subscribes. And I'm getting just constant text messages and emails of people that are enjoying the show out there. So I'm going to keep the content coming. I've got so many great guests coming down the pipeline here very shortly. Don't be afraid to share this podcast with somebody that you might think would help them or would enjoy this content. So as I always leave you with, study, practice, teach, and then pass it on. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.